Welcome back. Now, an investigation is underway to determine the cause of crash between a scholar transport vehicle and a truck. The death toll from this morning's collision near Vanderbijlpark in southern Gauteng has increased to 14. A number of pupils remain in hospital, with some said to be in a critical condition. For more on the story, we are joined by Greater Gauteng Learner Transport Organization General Secretary Sibongile Maseko, the National Association of School Governing Bodies General Secretary Matakanye Matakanya, and the Road Safety Advocate and MasterDrive CEO Eugene Herbert. Remember, you can send us your comments as well as your questions on WhatsApp to 072-110-5584 or give us a call on 010-594-6010 or engage with us on X at Newzroom 405. So I do believe that Matakanye Matakanya is still struggling to connect, but we do have our two guests with us, Eugene and Sibongile. Thank you for joining us this evening. Quite a heavy day for many South Africans with what we saw there on the Golden Highway. Eugene, perhaps let's begin with you to get your immediate thoughts on this tragic incident, and what do you think this reveals about the state of school transport, especially for young children and their safety in the country?
Good evening, Seko, and to the viewers, and please our condolences for all and anyone who was affected by this tragedy. But talking to what you've referenced, sadly, it is true that our most vulnerable road users, who are our school children that are lifted there in one way or another, even walking or something like that, very little direction is given to ensuring that they arrive at school safely. And, you know, over the years we've seen it. And please, we ran a project, as there's an NPO that I also chair, and we did a project where we trained, I think there's 120 scholar transport drivers who actually achieved such excellent results that it clearly demonstrated that change is possible. But given where we are, fundamental disrespect for law and order, and I do think that one of the things that we saw evidence during the festive season, a reduction in crashes and the like, is because law enforcement was more visible and they were present. And in fact, there was reference made to the number of arrests because people tried to bribe these law enforcement officials. So there is things that we can do, but it means that the vehicles have to be roadworthy, firstly. Secondly, we also have to look at the nature and the manner in which we transport children. Legislation is very vague. It doesn't, on the one hand, it says that every occupant must be, strapped in with a seatbelt. You show me any one of these scholar transports where the children have a seatbelt on. It just doesn't happen, because the conflict is that it also allows for a certain age or a certain size and height. In place of one adult, there could be, or one adult, there could be two children, or as we go up the ladder. So some of the basic things need to be clarified. And then, of course, I think we cannot escape the fact that parents carry responsibility for who is transporting their children. If they're prepared to accept just word of mouth from somebody because it's convenient, maybe they need to look a little bit closer.
And Eugene, you raise a very important point there, but a little later on, I really want us to sort of unpack the understanding around what you've already referenced, and that being the weight-based counts for overloading with regards to one adult equals to 2 or 3 children. So, Bongile, maybe let's bring you into the conversation here. Maybe just get your perspective with regards to what you find to be the biggest challenges that are generally faced, especially in regulating and overseeing private scholar transport vehicles.
Good evening. The greatest challenge that we have is it's the scholar transport that we do ourselves as private. It's not regulated. The only scholar transport that is regulated is the scholar transport buses. Those ones are regulated right now with the Department of Transport dealing with trying to establish and make policies on learner transport regulation and policies. So that is the challenge that we have, because if you have a car, you can just come and stand by the gate of the school and ask for a parent and speak to a parent. A parent will give you their children, and there's no one who will ask you, why are you doing that? And the other thing is what has been said already. Law enforcement are nowhere on the roads when they are supposed to be there to monitor everything that is happening on the road. So that is what is happening. That is the greatest challenge that we have, influx of people in our industry.
I see you nodding there, Eugene, especially when Sibongile speaks about anybody with a car can stand outside a school and offer their services to parents that are needing for their children to be ferried. There's also been that argument of whether we should be looking at only having school buses versus minibus taxis, and that being a safer option.
I hear you, and I do think any possibility should be explored. However, when you look at the ease with which the scholars or people in general can be transported in minibuses, it just makes it for a very efficient way of doing that. However, we know that they are very closely aligned with the taxi industry, and in fact, in some instances, an operator may be transporting scholars, and then the driver goes out and does normal transportation of passengers to and from work. And as Sibongile mentioned, this is something that I do believe needs to be looked at more in depth. We are dealing with social issues, and interestingly, we found from our training that we do that more and more children, possibly because of more affluent parents, are actually now being Ubered to work or to school and home. Now, that in itself presents challenges because we know what happens. There's been instances where Uber drivers have done patently unsafe things. So just because it's a ride-hail service doesn't mean it's safe. And then, of course, we've got to be aware of the fact that some of those people who are driving those vehicles don't necessarily always have the best of intentions. And I'm not prepared to entrust my child to a stranger who I've not done a thorough vetting check and ensure that, A, they've got a license, a proper license, not one that's been bought at the local establishment, and in fact that they've got the right qualifications by way of a PRDP in order to qualify to carry passengers for reward. But we, of course, know that those type of things can be bought. So when we have a more effective system of ensuring that those who enter the driving system, A, are legal, and B, are trained to some or other level, we unfortunately will still experience these challenges that we have that Sibongile has mentioned.
And these are like really pertinent challenges that we are seeing on a continuous basis. I mean, you also mentioned, as well as Eugene, that the visibility of law enforcement on the roads continuously also plays a part when it comes to some of the driver behavior and then the accidents that then we wouldn't see on the road.
If I can just comment there. Sorry, Sibongile, you go.
Yes, Bongile?
No, I was saying, yes, I was saying the visibility of law enforcement helps a lot because as we drive daily and we know that they are there, then we behave. But when they are not there, you will see what happens on the road. So they are nowhere to be found. It's just then now recently that we see them. But for all the years, Learner Transport was just a place where anybody can come and do whatever they want.
Eugene, then wanting to come in there, I'm going to give you that opportunity maybe while you answer that. What does that then say about the culture of South African drivers on the road?
Maybe if I can talk to the culture of South African drivers first. When they get their license, they believe they have a right to use the road. Whereas we believe that once you get your license, you have a responsibility toward yourself and other road users. Now, other road users can be broadly defined as cyclists, motorcyclists, pedestrians, and of course, in this instance, we're talking about scholars. So if we adopt the approach that we share the road by the good grace of others, and if we conduct ourselves in a manner that is a reflection of being law-abiding citizens who respect the law. For example, just think about around schools. Whilst the law maybe says that in a built-up area, 60 kilometers an hour is the limit. However, if it's only at and around school, where in legislation in South Africa is 40 kilometers an hour, but the worldwide trend is to reduce it to 30 kilometers an hour, because we know children do silly things. We know they will step out in the front of a vehicle, and we've got to ensure that we are cognizant enough to anticipate the challenges. And I do think that there's opportunities in schools, in various institutions. And by the way, that NPO, it's the Road Safety Partnership, we educate children on the safe use of roads. And that means not only when they're in a vehicle, but also when they're engaged with crossing roads and ensuring that they get into their classroom safely.
Most certainly. Well, let's take a quick ad break and we'll be back with just some of the comments and engagements from the public after the devastating tragic accident that claimed the lives of 14 children out on the Golden Highway. We are having this conversation today with regards to what measures need to be put in place in order to ensure the children are ferried to and from school safely. We'll see you after this. Welcome back. You are watching the late edition, and today we are speaking after that collision that happened this morning in Vanderbijlpark, where we saw 14 school learners losing their lives. We are in conversation with the Greater Gauteng Learner Transport Organization, General Secretary Sibongile Maseko, as well as the CEO of MasterDrive Eugene Herbert. So, Mam Sibongile, we were still talking earlier on just with regards to some of that driver behavior. Maybe talk to us about what you think would be effective ways of vetting drivers, whether it's by the schools or the parents themselves, because a lot of the times we find ourselves in that January rush where parents are looking for any scholar transport that they can rely on in order to get their children to and from school.
Yes, I think the best way of vetting drivers is through organizations. We have organizations in learner transport. If every operator can be part of an organization, then it will be easier because parents will just have to call the organization if they need transport. But for now, it's anybody can take a learner from wherever they can. Right now, there is a trend on Facebook where when it's December and January, everybody is advertising on Facebook that they are ferrying kids to school, and parents get those people, and those people ferry their kids, and in later times there are problems that are happening that we as organization have to deal with those problems. I think that is what should happen. Every operator should be part, because in our organization we vet our drivers. We check our drivers. Right now, tomorrow, we have a back-to-school campaign with, in partnership with the Department of Road and Transport here in Gauteng. And the licensing department will be there. City of Johannesburg will be there because it's here in Johannesburg. The whole of Gauteng, that is what we are doing. So if people are in organizations, then it's easy to communicate with those operators through leadership in organizations.
Eugene, you agree that this vetting process needs to be more streamlined in order for parents to find the right drivers for their children?
Can I just reiterate what Sibongile said? Parents are too quick to arrange things at the last moment. And I understand that, they have issues getting back to work, etc. But what's more valuable than your child's life? You've invested however many years. So why not just take it that next level? And when you hear what Sibongile is saying, they can contact. And if you don't have the number available, Sibongile, I'm happy to advertise your number on our website so that people who are looking for it, that they can know what's going on. But if I can just go back a few moments to what Sibongile said about law enforcement, scientific studies show that if a person is aware of the fact that they are being watched, they behave better. Now, that's the Hawthorne studies in the 50s. So if we accept that as a fact, it's uncontested, we know, therefore, that if law enforcement is present and motorists are aware of the fact that they've been watched, they tend to behave better. So that's a given. Now, if you take some of the biggest challenges that we have with regard to fatalities on the road, fatigue, drinking and driving, and I sincerely hope that driver wasn't under the influence, distracted while driving, using cell phones, and then, of course, the fact that a vehicle could be unroadworthy. If we could address these things, and what Sibongile is suggesting there, their organization would ensure that the transport, so it's not just the driver, but the transport that he or she is using is safe to carry the children to school and back. And that's a start. It's not the ultimate, and I don't think I want to be so naive as to say that it will fix every problem, but we've got to start somewhere.
No, we certainly do. We certainly do. We've got Matakanye Matakanya from the National Association of School Governing Bodies on the line with us. A very good evening, and thank you for joining us, sir. Maybe just talk to us with regards to the role of school governing bodies when it comes to the safety of learners, and also just ensuring that the transportation that is ferrying the young children to and from school is monitored and is certainly safe.
Thank you so much. Compliments and to yourself and all your listeners and viewers. The school governing body is the government of the school. What they have to do, the roles and the responsibility of the school governing body, is contained in the South African Schools Act number 84 of 1996, as amended. I mean, when you check Section 20, Section 21, Section 38, 37, and all the 40, then they will tell you the role of the school governing body. But specifically is to formulate laws, which are called policies in schools, to ensure that now the school runs smoothly, like a business. Then question of regulating teachers, question of, although we are not allowed to regulate teachers,
right?
Teachers are regulated by the Department of Education, but we are also able to regulate teachers that are hired by us, and then we are able to craft the code of conduct for learners, and we are also able to craft a code of conduct for us as school governing bodies. But now, the National Association of School Government comes there as the mouthpiece of all the school governing bodies in the country, so that when we have problems, then one person can go and represent all the school governing body once, unlike if they've got problems, then they will, today, then 2,000 will go and knock at the door of the minister or the door of the door of the MEC and all those, which is impossible and all this. But we are there as a coordinating voice.
So what would you give as advice then to the school governing bodies on the ground with regards to creating some kind of synergies when it comes to scholar transport that operates from those schools? We are saying now is the time. We have been talking about these things for quite a number of years, but apparently it does not even yield results. So we are saying to the school government to craft policies that will ensure that everybody is able to monitor the scholar transport. In the policy, then we can say parents of this very school ensure that now the transport that brings these children to this school, the driver has got all the licenses, all the particulars. The driver is complying. We know that the driver will comply by just being asked questions whether he has a license or what. If the license is not the real one, then parents may not know. But we are thinking that in the policy, then we must start indicating that the law enforcers must work with the parents, must work with the community, must work with the school, so the school quickly can report when this transport is not roadworthy. Then we can quickly, as a school, as school government, can quickly report this matter to the authorities to say this number, this transport is not. Can you check it? Because we are not sure whether it is roadworthy. We are not sure whether the driver is complying and all those things. And also, we are saying to the parents, and this police must also so that parents must know some of these drivers. They must know who is driving their children, and then who is the owner of this transport. Because sometimes this question of corruption, then it ends up now killing our children, because somebody will come and apply for a tender. He does not have transport. I mean, does not have cars. He goes next door and get cars next door and all those things. Now, we are saying the department must up the game. Must up the game so that this question of corruption that ending up killing our children, then it must come to a stop. But we must regulate it as a school government so that now, when the panel sits, then some of these school governing bodies must go and sit
there and know that now a person who is being appointed as a service provider, then where does he come from, where his background and all those things.
And the parents should also be involved in crafting that policy. We do have a caller on the line, Colbert from Thoyando. A very good evening to you. What are your thoughts this evening? All right, it seems as though we have lost Colbert, but we do have a few of your WhatsApp engagements. We've got Ms. Dlamini saying what happened in Vanderbijlpark today is very sad. We sympathize with the families that lost their children. May they be comforted. Israel Dwaletsi says condolences to the families of the deceased in the Vaal accident in the morning. Scholar Transport needs a serious probe. It cannot be that we just lost 14 pupils due to the negligence of a driver. The law must be strengthened to these transportation. They even overload these vehicles. Nombuso says, good evening. I'm so hurt about the accident. That driver must be arrested and they must check which transport organization he's at, and they also close that organization. Last but not least, we've got Dabi Kalusha saying, I think law enforcement must be visible, especially at the Vaal. The behavior of Scholar Transport is not good, and most of the cars are not roadworthy. They do overload, they fetch children late and drive reckless, so unroadworthy cars must be removed permanently. And there is a spot where they changed children for saving the cost and do that overload. All right, thank you so much for your engagements with us on WhatsApp. Maybe let's just get back to our guests this evening as we continue this conversation. Mam Maseko, we heard there a lot of people saying there are some overloads that we are seeing with some of these Scholar Transport systems. A lot of the viewers complaining that even the behavior of the drivers are quite questionable. We heard the MEC also earlier alluding to the fact that this particular driver was also warned just a week ago with regards to the way in which he drives on our roads. So certainly the driver behavior is one that we really need to look at, especially when we've got people who have children in their care.
Yes, driver behavior is a problem, mostly in learner transport. Learner transport has been infiltrated by young people. We know that in South Africa, there's no jobs. Some kids will leave school and they don't know what to do. So the easiest way and the easiest place to go, it will be learner transport. And now driver behavior there, it's a challenge where young drivers, I don't know how old is the driver that got an accident today, but young drivers, they drive reckless and they don't respect other road users. That is a fact in learner transport. But then we have other drivers that are older. They behave well, those older drivers. But we are trying as an organization to educate them on how to behave on the roads.
Most certainly, quite a tough balancing act that must be with regards to ensuring that young people are able to make a living, but also just that behavior of the older driver that seems more responsible. We have a caller on the line, John in Guyana. A very good evening to you. What are your thoughts today?
Yes, I think as long as we are not being decisive, taking harsh action on these drivers who continue to misbehave on the road, this thing will continue forever. So I think what we need to do is for the law enforcers to ensure that they put stricter or harsher sentences to people who continue doing this thing on the road.
Most certainly, those perpetrators need to face the long arm of the law. Thank you so much for joining us. That's John in Guyana. Certainly, Eugene, are we seeing that people are deterred from such behaviors when the law comes into play and ensuring that people are persecuted for such crimes?
I'm very... Look, during the festive season, we saw a reduction in fatalities of about 5%, road accidents. Now, what's interesting, and I do believe that law enforcement was acting more responsibly because of what's happening behind the scene. You know, with the various commissions taking place where people have been caught and they've been shown up to be irresponsible and taking bribes, etc. So I think what has happened is that they are more conscious of the fact that their actions are being observed and possibly being reported by motorists. But the biggest challenge that we have today, I honestly believe, is that think about the people who use our roads today ever since COVID. We brought along this host of power outages, etc. Traffic lights now don't work. How often, and by the way, the law is that if a traffic light is not working, you should treat it as a four-way stop. But haven't you seen road users just fly through them, even when they're red? Because the traffic light is working, but they're so used to doing what they did when there were no traffic lights or they weren't functional, they still continue to perpetuate that behavior. Sibongile mentioned driver behavior. It is the single biggest contributor toward road crashes today. I think it's 84 to 90% or something like that. Now, how do we change that behavior? And it's not by legislation. The legislation is in place. But if we work and law enforcement works to fulfill their mandate, being present, not taking bribes, making sure the punishment fits the crime. And whilst I'm fairly positive about what may happen with ARTO when it's introduced next year, which is the new system that will penalize drivers by taking away driver's licenses, etc., if they incur demerit points. But it's only as good as the people who are enforcing it. And if we could have a drive to educate more road users with regard to what they should be doing, not just to prevent being given a traffic ticket or being thrown in jail, but because it's a responsible thing to do. And the moment we, as a social initiative, determine that we want to be better road users, that's when change can start happening.
And we certainly do need that change. I mean, you spoke earlier on in terms of that 120 scholar transport drivers that you trained over some time, and you saw results in terms of those drivers, in terms of how they behaved on the road. We've got another caller on the line from Hammanskraal. Very good evening to you. Give us your thoughts today, Opa.
Hello, how are you, ma'am?
Good, thanks, Opa. What are your thoughts today?
You know, ma'am, we're having a problem because, you know, these drivers, they overload our kids. And then you see the traffic cops and the metro police, they just overlook them. I don't know where can we report those things? Because when you see law enforcement not attending to those problems, we don't know where to run to.
It certainly is quite a concern. Thank you, Opa. That's Opa from Hammanskraal. Tate Matakanya, maybe let's bring you back here. With Opa speaking there about law enforcement, sometimes even being aware of the overloading, letting these scholar transport drivers pass by. What do you think contributes to the overall culture in the country that we are not as vigilant as we should be, especially when it comes to children on the road?
No, thank you once again. You know, the question of transport, the drivers, the transport cars in this country. I mean, you know that during the festive season, it's a mess. It's a mess. You know, people are becoming excited over nothing and all those things, but that end up whilst there are law enforcers, well, there are rules, there are regulations, there are laws and all those. But what I think really, if we are serious as South Africans, we have really to stop it. It can be stopped by us as communities. It can be stopped by us as parents. It can be stopped by us as societies and say, look, I mean, these people, they are working. Some of these drivers are working. The car owners are working. Now, we just have to punish them economically and say, if this car is not roadworthy, no parent must allow his or a child to get into that. And if the driver is not complying or the history of the driver is this, no parent will allow his or a child to get into that. You see, things with but now we keep on saying law enforcers. I mean, how long have been we talking about this law enforcers and all those things? You remember that the corruptions of and I don't want just to want to get, but if we want to change things, I think society must come together and say, no, we must not act when it is late already. Because I think now we are discussing this question of our children who passed on today. It is too late. We have lost a young life. But how do we avoid that? We are ensuring that also we must pressurize the government. We must pressure the government so that all the cars that are carrying children, they must be seriously marked. Marked so that you must tell us that you could not see that now these are the children here and all those things when this type of accident is happening. But also, the school governing bodies, it is time that now really they must make stringent policies that really are ensuring that now these people feel heat. But we must work together. We must support one another and all this. But and I'm not saying we must throw our hands against the law enforcers, but I mean,
we need to play a part as well as parents. Apologies, Ntate Matakanye, for interjecting there. We quickly need to take a break, but we will finish off that thought because what you raise is very important, that it is a collective approach that we need to take as a society. We'll take more of your calls as well after this break, so do stay with us. Welcome back. We're wrapping up our conversation around the safety of children on the road. This is after the carnage that we saw this morning in Vanderbijlpark. We've got Sanele in Mnambithe. Very good evening to you, Sanele. What are your thoughts tonight?
Good evening, my sister. Just shortly, I think this thing, we have done everything in terms of just trying to assist this sector. It's only the attitude among the three triangular phases that we need to intervene, and it is them themselves that they must ensure that this thing comes to a stop. It's just the parents of the children, the owner of the scholar transport, and the people that are hired by the owners of the transport, like the driver. What do I mean by that? I mean, like the parents, the taxi will be full, but you will find that the parent will be persuading the owner, saying that please, just for my child. Then you'll find that the taxi will be overloaded. That's that. Secondly, the owners of the scholar transport themselves, they don't respect the parents and the children, even the education department, because you will find that they don't even have a straight driver. They hire this one today, they hire that one tomorrow. But who should monitor that? It's me as a parent that today I left my child with people, then the next day I left it with somebody else. There should be a serious relationship between these three bodies. Then everything will be smooth. And I'm very sorry for whatever that happened, the accident for those Vanderbijlpark families.
Most certainly.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sanele. And very important points that you are raising there, especially for us to take accountability as parents, drivers, as well as those car owners. Let's just get your closing thoughts, Eugene. I mean, Sanele speaks about what it is in terms of a culture that parents, the drivers, as well as the owners of these vehicles need to be cognizant of. We touched earlier, and I just want us maybe to talk about it, just those complex rules, especially when it comes for children on the roads. I mean, it has to do with children under 3 years, their height, their weight, that weight-based count in terms of overloading. How much of that is contributing to the carnage on our roads?
I would really love to know the exact number, but I would imagine it is fairly significant, because when you do have an incident such as this, and I'm just making a statement, I don't know for a fact, but it was reported that this vehicle was overloaded. Now, think about those children in a bus, in a minibus such as that, unrestrained, and that vehicle rolling. It's just going to crush every single individual in that bus. And that's maybe why the driver survived, but the number of children died. Now, if we make sure that the vehicle is roadworthy, which means it should have seat belts, the application, which is not going to be economically beneficial to the operator, but is applied so that the children can get there safe. And certainly, and I'm sure that everyone that is listening here and viewing today will accept that transporting children on the back of a bakkie is one of the most dangerous things that can be done. So to actively discourage anything other than that which is roadworthy and that is capable of carrying our children in an enclosed area, and of course making sure to the extent that's possible that they're secured safely in their seat. And then of course let's not forget the driver. The driver, if they have developed a culture of disobeying the law, going up the yellow line, going through traffic lights, etc., and even working double shifts, that has to change. But sadly, it's not something that you can legislate against. It must be something that parents will bring to bear, pressure to bear through the schools to ensure that the individuals who are transporting have some level of qualification or some standard.
Most certainly. Sibongile, to get your closing thoughts very quickly with regards to how do we improve accountability in the sector?
Firstly, I just want to speak on what the SGB said, the National SGB said in regard to the policy. I feel like it took them a long time before they decide to sit and develop that policy, because we've been experiencing accidents and they don't have a policy as yet to work with learner transport. And secondly, we need the Department of Education to be involved in what we are doing as learner transport, more especially organizations, because the Department of Education distance themselves from the learner transport, which brings us a lot of problems in our operation as learner transport. So in all, we need to come together as operators, as government, as communities, as parents, and say what is it that we can do to remedy the situation that is happening right now. Because driver behavior should change in everything that we do, us as drivers on the road.
Most certainly. Well, that's all the time we have for this evening. Thank you so much for your contributions. A very important conversation that constantly keeps coming up, especially when we see incidences like this. But we really, at the helm of it, need to change our behavior as those that are using the roads. That was Sibongile Maseko, the Greater Gauteng Learner Transport Organization, SG, as well as Eugene Herbert, the CEO of MasterDrive, and Matakanye Matakanya, the National Association of School Governing Bodies, joining us there for that conversation.